Robert Davi believes he should use his voice to both repay and help unite America, the America that made his dreams come true.
No more Mr. Nice Guy.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is The Robert Davi Show.
Good morning, everyone. Here we are, another day, Tuesday, July, I think, 20th. And I got up early this morning, run to the dentist. I had an extraction on Friday. You let things go sometimes, and then all of a sudden they just explode up a little bit, and not comfortable, I got to tell you. It feels like it's an antiquated thing. I felt like he had a jackhammer in my mouth at one point, trying to extract the tooth, and it was painful, and even though I was Novocained out a little bit, and then it's, the excavation. I remember going to the Amazon rainforest and looking at the excavation for gold into the earth. I wonder if the earth feels pain when you're digging for something, if there's the same kind of environmental, it has to be something, right? You would think, John, you would think that there would be some residue.
I believe that there is. I don't think that it's registered the same way we know pain,
right?
But I feel as though that there is something.
There's something that the earth has to feel.
Absolutely.
Mother Earth. All life, all living, organisms have some effect, cause and effect. So I was thinking as he was digging in, and I was going back to the Amazon rainforest. This was 1990. I did it with a Finnish director. It was one of the first environmental films that was done. And got good reviews. It was an all-Finnish film, except Ray Don Chan was in it, and myself. We were the two Americans in the film. And I played a pilot that took people from in a single-engine plane into the deep jungle and the garimpos in and out. Garimpos meaning gold diggers. And I was in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro, Manaus, which where the rubber plantations were, in a beautiful place called the Hotel Tropical. Then I went to Boa Vista, which was like a Wild West town, absolutely the same thing, where they would come in with their money, and it looked like that dirt road with these old-time shacks with colored lights, and they would come in and they would spend their money drinking and whoring and exchange it and save whatever they could. And we always got shootouts at this particular place. And then into Tepecam, which is the crater of the volcano there. So I was all over Roraima in Brazil. And I was, trying to get away. You try to displace yourself as you're going through some kind of uncomfortable experience, especially the digging out of whatever it was, the extraction of my tooth. I know it's kind of like, it's silly to kind of equate it with extracting gold from the earth. But in a way, it gives you a sensitivity toward if we humanize our environment. If we humanize our environment, how interesting is that? And think about the repercussions of this. I talked about it the other day. And I'm bringing the environment up. I'll bring up, Jeff Bezos went to the limits of our atmosphere. Him and a group of people took off today on his Blue Origin, I think it is, his plane, and he gave a nice speech, and he stepped down from Amazon and is going to devote himself to his new space business and the environment. And then he's going to pick some other things. And he gave money, $100 million. He gave $100 million to Van Jones and to Jose Andes, who is a chef. Van Jones is a political analyst. And the $100 million, they can do what they want to, but this is for better Americans and to take action in terms of what they want to do to help society. And they can use it for their own charity, or they can put it into other charities, but for the benefit of mankind. $100 million each. Jeff Bezos gave each of those guys today, which was a surprise to the media. Then you had, and he gave an interesting speech. You know, I bring up Jeff Bezos because the last concert I did in Paris at the Eiffel Tower. And it was for the Legion of Honor that Diane van Furstenberg had gotten. There were 50 people there, and I met Jeff Bezos, he being one of them that was there at this little concert. And he gave a speech about unity. Unity in terms of, and again, he owns the Washington Post. I think Amazon's going to make $3.5 trillion in the next few years. Very wealthy individual. So the largest that you can have as a human being, of course, expands. You know, when you're not dealing with daily survival, you can let your mind go to bigger things. I think all of us would be that altruistic if we had the ability to not fight the day-to-day struggle of survival. But here it is, Jeff Bezos has given the opportunity, and he wants to give back, and he wants to make a difference, and he's obviously having fun doing it. And he brought up his environmental climate organization and the need for unity. What he said, and I responded to it. What he said was that we can have differences of ideology, and John and I, you and I have had this discussion. And this is what struck me most about his speech. And I'm sure cynics out there will say, yeah, and other people, you know, because if it was, why would the Post be so ununifying? Why would any media outlet? And if he has the ability to control a media outlet and be the CEO of a media outlet, you would think he would make sure that that media outlet would be fair. So there's a hypocrisy in all of us. And so what he was saying was, let the ideas speak for themselves and vehemently and passionately discuss the ideas without name-calling and putting each other down, but go at it with ideas. And that is exactly what my Parents Unified for Education organization is about. We'll be building a website soon, and you'll be able to reach out to me, and we can start connecting and start. It's about educating ourselves about, they say, critical race theory. And we've had discussions about this. I've had it with John. And critical race theory to me is the fact of it, it seems to people, some people, to split us apart. So Parents United for Education is to take that equation, probably give the same information, but without the same kind of subtle propaganda that might go with that. Lay the facts out bare. A nonpartisan organization where we have people that can explain what happened. Like when we spoke last, John, I was talking about William Harvey Carney, the man who held the flag. The old flag didn't touch the ground, boys.
Yeah.
And you said you hadn't known about him. And then you said, much like, I think it was maybe afterwards, or maybe it was on the air, about whole cities, black cities that were put underwater, one Lake Lanier in Georgia, and then the Central Park. And I saw the comedian, the female, who did a whole number on that. I forget her name. But I researched that. And in the same spirit of presenting facts without wanting to split us apart, but to unite us. And this is what Jeff Bezos was talking about today, in terms of not the vilifying one group or another, not vilifying the rich or the poor or the black or the brown or the white or the Jew or the Gentile or the Catholic or the Muslim, but having a unifying message of, let us learn together. Let us explore together. Now, that seems idealistic, doesn't it? But it's a dream. It's, I think, the dream that Martin Luther King had, and many of us have. And I think we have to keep. I look at. I've been so. When I get angry, I can be vile. Sometimes I can talk. And then I think later on, okay, why? Why did I get so, not divisive, but so angry at the hypocrisy of something. And then I think to Christ at the money changers, the money lenders there in the church. He turned over the tables. There's righteousness in terms of having indignation, but it then becomes an excuse for more and more discord. For instance, there's a tremendous amount happening in South Africa right now. In Cuba, Venezuela, Nicaragua, Hong Kong, we know about. And I think the Biden administration talk about the Cuban people crying for libertad. I spoke about this in depth yesterday. And are they doing enough? Well, supposedly he had a Zoom call with some Cuban leaders and some celebrities. Gloria Estefan and Andy Garcia were in on the Zoom call. And I think that's an optic thing, because the Democratic Party will be losing the Cuban vote because of the lack of or blaming what's happening in Cuba on the embargo, which it's not. It's about communism and Marxism. Robert Davi, back in a minute.
The smartest way for you to get the lowest prices on your plane tickets, domestic or international, is to call SmartFares first or last, but you've got to call us before you book your plane tickets. Fly anywhere in the world, fly anywhere in the U.S., and SmartFares can save you up to 75% on your plane tickets. We have the lowest airline ticket prices on over 500 airlines, and you've got a great 12-hour free cancellation window. Plus, with our live agent help, you can always get fast help and fast answers. So on your next trip, maybe today, maybe tomorrow, how about right now? Pick up your phone and call SmartFares, plus save up to 75% on your plane reservation. So call right now. 800-915-2644. 800-915-2644. 800-915-2644. 800-915-2644.
Now it's time for MedVed's Entertainment Minute.
A lavish new installment in the Avengers saga tries to give you the backstory of Natasha Romanoff, played by Scarlett Johansson, but better known as Black Widow, now playing in theaters and streaming on Disney+.
You don't know everything about me. I've lived a lot of lives before I was an Avenger, before I got this family. I made mistakes choosing between what the world wants you to be and who you are.
The film is full of that sort of philosophical dialogue, and it begins well, with a gripping scene of what seems like a normal American family suddenly in desperate danger. But the plotline will be difficult to follow for those not deeply schooled in the Avengers mythology, and the endless explosions, bursts of fire, and leaps through midair are more tedious than terrific. Supporting characters played by David Harbour, Rachel Weisz, and Ray Winstone are the best part of the movie. 2 stars for the incoherently indulgent Black Widow.
This review brought to you by the Thank Heaven Foundation.
If Ernest Hemingway was alive today, would he say this to you?
Shakespeare, Mark Twain, Edgar Allan Poe, all great writers. And after reading your book, I simply must add you to the list.
Wait, you don't have a book yet. So make a free call to Page Publishing. Their expert staff can help you turn your book idea into a real book, a masterpiece that could someday make the bestseller list in hard copy and digitally all across the world. Page Publishing can help you completely take your idea for a book, write it, and publish it. So if you want to join the ranks of some of the most famous authors in the world, call now for a free information kit. Turn your book idea into publishing gold. Make a free call right now to Page Publishing.
800-378-3212. 800-378-3212. 800-378-3212. That's 800-378-3212.
Robert Davi.
You know, I'm the one delivering the message, not receiving it. So, my dear friends, getting back to the environment for a second, and I think the importance of, we have to have I started a thing called the Earth Force. And that was in response to the girl Gretchen from Sweden. having millions of kids around the world have a day where they were marching in the streets and protesting and doing stuff. And I thought to myself, I said, this is something, we're missing the point here. Think of all that energy. And think of, and I've spoken about it prior, but I think it's imperative. We have something called the Earth Force. Think of all the children, all the people, and I said this before, every 60 applicants for the armed forces from the inner cities, 59 are rejected for whatever reason. Now imagine if we had an organization called the Earth Force. Think about that. We have Space Force, Air Force, Navy, Army, Marines. We have everything to combat our territory. But what about protecting our territory in terms of Mother Earth? What about an Earth Force? What about a U.S. United Nations worldwide organization called the Earth Force, whereby we capture the youth. We give them trainings in reforestation, toxic mishaps, rebuilding the inner cities, cleaning up, being able to build fabricated homes for homeless, cleaning that area up. People can go into sociology even if they want to help the addicted in homelessness. There's a lot of things an Earth Force can do. Kind of take the Peace Corps idea that they had back in the 60s and expand on it and multiply it by a power of 100. And imagine the Earth Force now. And imagine Greta and all these kids that have been taught in school about climate change and everything else and the coming doom. Whether you believe it or not, there's something going on. Whether you believe it or not, there is pollution. I talked about China the other day. Raw sewage in the South China Seas near the Philippines are being dumped. Now, COVID lasts for 45 days in sewage, in your crap. COVID lasts. What else lasts for 45 days? And if fish are ingesting urine and roughage and the rest of it, and then they swim around, well, guess what? They're finding, people go, oh, he's ridiculous. But let me tell you something, my friends. It's been found that fish are addicted to crack cocaine. Did you know that? You knew that?
Yeah.
Fish are addicted to crack cocaine. A study says, I'm going to read it for you. Contaminated with methamphetamine, develop an addiction to the drug. Causes changes which had unexpected adverse consequences to the population levels and individual fish. Czech researchers isolated brown trout in a tank of water laced with a level of methamphetamine that has been found in freshwater rivers to see whether they were at risk of developing an addiction. After 8 weeks, they were moved into a freshwater tank. When offered the choice between the two tanks, the trout chose the meth-contaminated water in the first 4 days afterwards as they suffered withdrawal, according to the research. So, the fish that spent time in the water with methamphetamine were also less active than those who had not. Altered movement, behavior, preference for this methamphetamine during withdrawal were linked to drug residues in fish brain tissues and their metabolic changes, also in the brain. The results suggest that emission of illicit drugs into freshwater ecosystems causes addiction to fish and has consequences for their individual and population levels. And there's also human problems that get transferred into this aquatic ecosystem. So this is something here that, we're just ignoring. We're not talking about it. I haven't heard it on the news. I haven't heard about it on the news. I haven't heard about it on anything. Nobody's talked about it. And prescription drugs can also do harm. Published later, which found medications such as antibiotics, epilepsy, were found in rivers and levels which could cause damage to ecosystems. So, what are we doing here? With the billions of people on Earth and the and the drugs and the taking of legal and illegal drugs and viruses and pollutants and our water system. And people say, well, it's big enough to fix and big enough to kind of it has a great system of, well, you know what? It doesn't. Because at a certain point, there's a saturation level to all of that. And I just pose it to you, not as a crazy environmentalist, but someone concerned for the future of the planet. And bringing awareness to something as seemingly innocuous as fish being addicted to crack cocaine. They even show that fishermen that use crack cocaine as a bait were highly successful. That's how insidious it's become. Using crack cocaine, methamphetamine as a bait, and it was highly successful. So, along with COVID, living in the intestines and the sewage system for 45 days that we know of, what else is lurking about? And as China and everything else, see, I think the problem that the left has, the right kind of brushes stuff aside to a certain extent. The left sends a message that it's America's fault, not taking China in accountability. Much like Biden wouldn't take China accountable for the hacking. He let that go. Now, why would he let that go? You tell me. Why are we letting China, who is buying American farmland, China, who is buying so much of the world, why don't we hold them accountable? And again, every day I hear something else about the lab, that it's been the lab in Wuhan that created this virus. Not necessarily that they released it on purpose, but that they were doing work on this virus. And I gave 59 pages of that. It's online. I've talked about it here over a year and a half ago. It does come from the Wuhan lab. It came from the Netherlands. It came from Saudi Arabia to the Netherlands, Canada to now Wuhan. Now people don't want to pull that out there and show it to the American people, but they don't have to. You can look online on my Twitter account, Robert Davi, and look at Google Robert Davi Twitter, the COVID resource, and you'll find 59 pages there that describe it in depth. So, what do we have in our world today? We have conflict of information. Some people say misinformation. It's conflict of information that's causing people not taking the vaccine or blaming for the rollout of something or killing people. When we come back, I want to talk about how the master of information, misinformation, the 10 worst lies by Joe Biden, and also some of the good things. So stay tuned. I'll be back in a moment.
Let's talk about your credit cards. When you first start using them, it's a slow drip. You make charges, then more charges, then bills come, and they keep coming. When you open your statements, the floodgates come pouring in. You realize you have more credit card debt than you can afford, and you're barely making the minimum payments. Wouldn't it be nice to make one affordable payment and have all your credit card bills covered? Make this free call and learn our responsible way to get your credit card bills paid and under control.
Sponsored by Consumer Education Services, a nonprofit organization.
800-876-3643. 800-876-3643. 800-876-3643. That's 800-876-3643.
CESI is not a loan company. The establishment of a debt management plan may adversely affect your credit rating. Non-payment of debt may lead creditors to increase finance and other charges to undertake collection activity, including liquidation.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to ask you a question. Did you know withdrawing your cash from the bank can be very risky? That's right. So please listen up. Are you aware that banks are now required to spy on us for the government and then report any behavior they think is suspicious? It's true. I was shocked as I read Swiss America's blockbuster report, The Secret War on Cash. This new war against cash is really a war against all freedom-loving Americans. Listen to me. You must read The Secret War on Cash. Now get your free copy by calling 866-219-3750. That's 866-219-3750. or visit SwissAmerica.com. This war on cash is growing daily and also includes all forms of digital money. So please, get ahead, read The Secret War on Cash, free to every Robert Davi fan today by calling 866-219-3750. That's 866-219-3750. And then you'll thank me later.
Tired of lockdown? Let the reconnect begin. You belong here. Welcome home to the magic of Angelo's and Vinci's Restaurante in Fullerton, California. Check out our new spacious outdoor dining al fresco. Romantic. Market lights. It looks like a movie set. Dine under the stars and enjoy our tasty Angelo's and Vinci's pizza, pasta, seafood, chicken, salad dinners, and more. In the cool of the evening, come enjoy our award-winning menu, new wine list, specialty cocktails like our peach Bellini martini, appetizers, and more. Angelo's and Vinci's now open every day from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. for relaxing outdoor dining. No reservations needed. Just come on in for delicious Italian food. Angelo's and Vinci's Restaurante, 550 North Harbor Boulevard in Fullerton. Call 714-879-4022. We're going to need a lot of pasta to get through this year. Come to Angelo's and Vinci's at 550 North Harbor Boulevard in Fullerton today.
Trying to sell your old car? Instead, donate your vehicle to Heritage for the Blind. Pickup is free, and your donation is tax deductible. Just call 1-800-785-9618. Heritage for the Blind accepts cars, vans, trucks, and boats, whether they run or not. Call right now and receive a free 3-day vacation voucher to over 50 locations. Call 1-800-785-9618. Donate your car today. That's 1-800-785-9618.
All right, is that a Q2 or Q3 expense?
Dwayne's CPA went MIA.
Nah.
To keep his books and his sanity, he needs to find a replacement ASAP.
Hey, Johnny, have you ever heard of a fungible good?
Indeed can help him hire the people he needs.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. When you sponsor a job, you immediately get your short list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job criteria. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
The Robert Davi Show.
I'm Dwayne Robinson, LAPD. I'm in charge here.
Not anymore. So, as I was saying, we have misinformation on so many levels. Now, I'm speaking to some of the top doctors in the country and some of the top doctors that helped work with the vaccine program and that have their own families. Let's talk about COVID for a second, because this misinformation that's been happening that we hear about, yes, there are people that have an effect to the vaccine. That is a fact. People, I'm told, 14 to 24, most likely there's a question about whether they should be vaccinated or not by some doctors or not. I'm not going to get into that. I know Robert Kennedy Jr., he's a friend of mine for years. He's always been an anti-vaxxer, and Joe Biden today, or the other day, got hauled over the coals because he said something about the misinformation that Facebook is killing people. And then I'm sure his staff went crazy, and they said, no. And then he said, no, there are 12 people that are killing people on Facebook, and it's not Facebook, it's these people, they're misinformation. And Robert Kennedy Jr. is listed as one. And it actually comes from an article from another publication that his people gave him about anti-vaxxers and people giving misinformation. Now, who knows? I mean, who knows? I mean, it's so... I vaxxed. I wear masks. I take D3, zinc, quercetin. There's a new study for isoquercetin or isotin that they're doing right now, I think, in Switzerland. There's someone in Ventura County, a woman, who is a doctor, and she's doing a study on the success of ivermectin. And it's been said that these things can help if you catch it early enough. So it's not so much as misinformation we need as information. And then you have to wade through and then decide for yourself. And they call Joe Biden the master of misinformation. I'm sure there are reasons why, but they're at 10, okay? Because he is pushing social media companies to suppress what he calls misinformation about coronavirus vaccines and blaming it for stalling the administration's rollout and claiming that bad information is killing people. Yet it's Biden himself who he's been assisted by deliberate misinformation by social media companies and the media who suppressed the true story of Hunter Biden's laptop. He produced misinformation for political advantage that has damaged the country. We can't deny that. It's there if you want to look at it. It's not propaganda. It's not partisan. It's just, let's find the truth. You know what I mean? I say, no one is innocent. No one is innocent. So let's not pretend we're innocent. Let's pretend that we are all in this together and we're all guilty of whatever we're guilty of. And let's come together in the spirit of what Jeff Bezos spoke about today that I talked about earlier. Now, what about the neo-Nazi misinformation that Biden launched his presidential campaign in April 2019, claiming that Trump, and this I saw that speech, he claimed that Trump referred to neo-Nazis and white supremacists in Charlottesville, Virginia, as very fine people. Now, it's on record. What Trump had said, they should be condemned. Totally. That's what he said. Now, Biden didn't invent the lie, but he repeated it. And he convinced many Americans that their president was a Nazi sympathizer and stroked racial tensions that fed nationwide unrest. Now, albeit Donald Trump's tone will lend to that. Many people were upset with a certain kind of tone, so they just assumed, of course, this is it. But if you paint someone, I know from films, movies that I've done over the last almost 5 decades, characters that I've played and scripts that I've read and how people interpret a character, it's very easy to kind of you read a script and you see this character is going in a negative direction. You know, he's the villain of the piece, so to speak. So everything he does now is looked at if you frame it correctly, and they do mostly films in the beginning. What they do is they'll set up the bad guy, he'll do a dastardly act, and now you know that this guy is unpredictable and he's going to go sour. Don't forget, the media does the same thing. They tell stories. They tell stories and they frame a dialogue and they try to frame individuals. That's why I talked about the ancient Rome calumny cause, where if you frame someone of something they didn't do, you receive the punishment of what you accuse them of. Now the other misinformation, let's say about the coronavirus vaccine. In August 2020, candidate Biden told Americans they could not trust the vaccine that had been produced by Trump's Operation Warp Speed. Now, this is the first out of I remember it. I remember Joe Biden saying it's not going to be ready and don't trust it. It's too fast. It's not likely to go through the tests and the trials that are needed. And he slandered the Food and Drug Administration. And he said Trump was moving it quicker than scientists think it should be moved, falsely acclaiming the authority of science. So many times Joe Biden and the left talked about in science. I believe in the science. And if you put the media together, it's like it's worse than Pravda. It's worse than the Russian communist newspaper machine. If you listen it all together, worse than science, worse than science, worse than science. It's not science. It's not science. It's not science. We follow the science. And all of a sudden there was a flip-flop. It's astounding to me, because what happens is I don't know how the American people are led like this in the spirit of Mr. Bezos. If we have differences of ideas, let's express them passionately. But let's not slander each other, even on the left, on the right. This has been going on. Now, what about officer shootings? Misinformation about officer-involved shootings. When Jacob Blake, Jr. in Kenosha, when the police shot him last August, Biden called Blake a victim of excessive force, said the officers must be held accountable. Albeit Blake was armed with a knife. He fought with officers. He was wanted for an outstanding warrant for sexual assault. And then a subsequent investigation exonerated the officers. But Biden's lie fueled outrage that had already exploded into riots on Kenosha streets. How do we deal with that misinformation? When that gets drummed into you by CNN and MSNBC and Scarborough and the other girl, Mika, and Tucker Carlson and, well, whoever. Tucker's in Fox, but he didn't talk about that. But Chris Cuomo did, the other guys. 4, misinformation about Antifa and riots. Violent radicals affiliated with the Antifa movement attacked the federal courthouse in Portland, Oregon for several months, firing incendiary devices and shooting laser beams at federal law enforcement officers. Biden claimed that the feds were brutally attacking peaceful protesters. This is a false claim, and it gave political cover to the radicals who continued their destruction in Portland, Kenosha, and elsewhere. Do you realize how bad that is? Do you realize how dangerous that is? Why would he do that? Why would the administration do that? Why would the Democrats let that happen? And why would the media let that happen? Oh, there's more. Stay tuned for more misinformation by Uncle Joe.
What are you going to do with your old car? You can try selling it, you could junk it, or you could donate it to Heritage for the Blind. Your car will be towed away for free, and your donation is tax deductible. Just call 1-800-785-9618. Heritage for the Blind accepts cars, vans, trucks, and boats. It doesn't matter if your vehicle runs or not. It will be towed away for free, and you'll be supporting those that need help. Heritage for the Blind is a nonprofit organization that helps the visually impaired live fuller lives. Call right now to donate your car, and as a special thank you for calling, you'll receive a free 3-day vacation voucher to many exciting locations. Call Heritage for the Blind right now, 1-800-785-9618. Donating is easy, and your vehicle is towed away for free. Plus, you'll get a free vacation voucher. Call now, 1-800-785-9618. That's 1-800-785-9618.
When you really want Italian food, you have got to get to Columbo's. Columbo's Italian Steakhouse and Jazz Club, Colorado Boulevard, Eagle Rock. It's that little neighborhood place you wish was down the street from you. Citizens, no need now to clamor for culinary gustatorial delights. Dreams do come true. Columbo's has triumphantly reopened its golden doors to feed the famished and soothe the savage beast. Bask in the delights of Columbo's succulent steaks, Neptune's superior offerings from the 7 seas, Columbo's family Italian specialties, and of course their world-famous meatballs, and it's all so affordable. Yes, Columbo's, the 9th wonder of the world, the Southern California pantheon dedicated to unrivaled and unparalleled yum yum. Columbo's, that little neighborhood place you wish was down the street from you. Columbo's, mangia bene.
Now it's time for MedVed's Entertainment Minute.
Director Steven Spielberg assembles a great ensemble cast for a moody thriller about petty crooks in 1954 Detroit who get drawn into a series of world-changing mysteries in No Sudden Move. Now playing in theaters and streaming on HBO Max.
The problem is you're not smart enough to know how not smart you are.
Why are you doing this, man?
Because I'm going to get what's mine.
That's Don Cheadle, who along with Benicio Del Toro is at the center of the action, along with the likes of Ray Liotta, Matt Damon, and John Hamm. The plot, which features some conspiratorial maneuvers in the auto industry, is intricate and intriguing, but the real power of this picture comes from the characterizations, which are consistently convincing and complex. It's rated R for rough language, some sex references, and disturbing violence that's plausible but never over the top. 3 stars for No Sudden Move, a supremely skillful piece of work that leaves you wondering about the deeper dimensions of what you've just seen.
Robert Davi.
Another $80 million write-off.
I guess it's time to start cutting overhead.
So, we're talking about the misinformation that Joe Biden is saying, 12 different instances of people on Facebook, and he walked back his Facebook attack. Of course, he had to. But it's other people, like Robert Kennedy Jr., who is sincerely against vaccines for obvious reasons. Jenny McCarthy is against vaccines. They say that their kids got ADD, and that may be. But they do a lot of good. I'm one that, for whatever reason, and I'm not an ultra-liberal and I'm not an ultra-conservative. I'm in that pocket, that pocket between the left and the right that I think we have to all come to kind of unify. I'll vehemently go against the extreme if I think it's wrong. But, so we're talking about Joe Biden's misinformation and the 10 different points. Now, number 5 of his misinformation was about China's threat to the United States. Now, he constantly downplays the threat China poses to the U.S. and the free world in general. He does that. You hear him all the time, giving them a pass. In January 2020, he dismissed Trump's coronavirus travel ban on China as hysterical xenophobia. You remember that? John, do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
Trump wanted to stop travel to China, and Pelosi, she went to Chinatown. Everybody criticized him. But how many lives could he have saved? Did Trump save, probably, by doing that? Maybe he should have gone more. But I know I can just imagine the blowback had, there'd been more not wanting to shut down. All right, so, and we didn't know exactly what was happening then, but they were hysterical. I remember the attacks from Biden, and on the campaign trail, he ridiculed the idea that China was an economic competitor to the U.S. He did. Biden did. That's misinformation, but he's not held accountable because you've got Anderson Cooper, and you've got Chris Cuomo, and you've got Don Lemon, and you've got the rest of them at MSNBC because they're in the tank. They have a different agenda. And all we need is education. Parents united for education. We need this. I talked about Reagan's last speech about a new informed American patriotism. So, and today, the Biden administration is still struggling to deal with Chinese and Russian cyber attacks on the U.S. Think about that. Now, if the virus started from the Wuhan lab, and let's say, because every intelligence agency makes sure that they tell me it wasn't done on purpose, because if it was done on purpose, then we got, World War III. We got a big problem. So they're saying, let's not start World War III, but it did come from a lab in China. This gain-of-function stuff that Fauci's involved with, and everybody's talking about the gain of function that every country does, okay? They do this, and we paid for it. I mean, the interweb of the globalization of the world is so insidious. It's, do you ever take a ball of string that's wrapped up nicely? Right? You got a thick ball of string, imagine that, or even fishing line. Thin fishing line that you have beautifully wrapped up.
Yeah.
And then, did you ever see when it just loses the form, and it just is like a pile of whatever it is now?
Yeah.
How do you untangle it?
It's almost impossible.
Right?
Yeah.
It's almost impossible to disentangle, and you just have to throw it out. Well, that's what we are today with the world, the globalization of things. and our politics. So it's complex. Then we have misinformation, number 6, about military deaths. Now, Biden claimed on the campaign trail last year that there had been 6,114 military deaths from the coronavirus pandemic, for which he blamed President Trump. Guess what the real number was? Take a guess. Biden said 6,114. All right, I won't put you on the spot. The real number, John, was 7.
That's it, 7?
7.
Yikes.
He debunked claims that Trump had referred to American soldiers as suckers and losers. Because Biden also repeated debunked claims that Trump had called American soldiers suckers. Ironically, Biden, when he was president, failed to recognize the anniversary of D-Day and dishonored the troops he promised. Now, all right, some of this may be seen through a partisan lens, but everything is. And I'm just trying to give some balance to the BS that's out there, the hypocrisy on both sides. Because there's no other media outlet that's giving you. There's maybe one or two, but most of the people are getting their information from other areas. And how about economic reopenings? Biden claims credit for ongoing economic recovery. But when several Republican-led states opted to drop their mask mandates and other restrictions in March, Biden accused them of Neanderthal thinking, saying that their decision to drop mandates was a big mistake. Instead of going up, those states started to decline and jobs also soared, for which Biden falsely taking credit. Now, in retrospect, what is that saying today? There's a spike up in California. This weekend, Gavin Newsom said put on the masks again. There's the Delta variant. There's also a Lambda variant. Delta variant was 60 times more virulent than the previous variant, and this new Lambda variant is 60 times more virulent than the Delta variant. And even people that are vaccinated seem to be getting this variant. Not as severely, supposedly, I don't know, as others, but yet they're getting it. How about misinformation about Trump and Lafayette Square? Biden claimed repeatedly that Trump used tear gas to clear peaceful protesters from Lafayette Square last June, so he could have a photo op at which he held a Bible upside down. And not one bit of that was true. But Biden repeated it again in the wake of the January 6th Capitol riot, stoking divisions that led to Trump's second failed impeachment. And in June, guess what happened? An Inspector General's report cleared that up. It didn't happen. Didn't use tear gas. And you know, the story about his Bible that he held upside down, there's a riveting story about it. We have 2 segments left, right? Finishing this one and one more. This is it. Lafayette Square. I'm going to get to that at the very end. Misinformation about Hunter Biden's laptop and Russian misinformation. The Biden campaign told reporters that stories about Hunter's laptop were Russian misinformation. The stories turned out to be true, dear fellow Americans. He set up meetings with his father and foreign business partners that had sought overseas business opportunities using his father's name. Biden claims there were misinformation designed to mislead the electorate. Now, who misled the electorate? Let's be honest. We're finding out more and more. They misled the electorate. The media did. We have to hold them accountable. We need a media accountability office, a nonpartisan media accountability office. And we need to have the Congress and the Senate in a nonpartisan way. First, we got to get rid of a lot of these cats that have been there forever. The last one is, how about misinformation about Republicans and Jim Crow? Biden repeatedly referred to Republican-backed ballot integrity as the new Jim Crow, accusing states like Georgia, Texas of trying to disenfranchise black voters. Many of these new voting laws expand opportunities to vote and are more liberal than the restrictive voting laws in Biden's home state of Delaware. This is a slander designed to stroke Racial tensions for political gain. That's what it is. Now, I haven't read the new voting laws. Nobody doesn't want honest votes to be counted. But don't we want honest voting? It's as simple as that. It makes common sense to me. If you establish a way to create a voting system that is dishonest and passing laws that can be fudged and can be a gray area, is that what we want for America? We want to be able to find out who's voting, why they're voting. There's nothing wrong with that. So all this partisan noise about this voting thing is really, I think, a different agenda. This is something else. There's something underneath this that's creating this kind of disenchantment with the voting laws. I didn't get to the story about the Bible at Lafayette Square, but I think tomorrow I'm going to tell you a very stunning story about that particular Bible that Donald Trump had and held, and its origins come from Scotland. We live in a wonderful country, my dear fellow Americans. Parents united for education. I need you to write that down, and I'll be giving you information on joining in the coming week or so. So please, love one another, try to understand each other, be open to different ideas, disagree. Don't be afraid to discuss with dignity your different ideas. God bless all of you. I think the most important thing we have is communication. We have the ability to communicate. And when it's stifled, when it's chopped off, as they're doing with Twitter and social media, the stifling of different ideas, that's the most dangerous thing facing this country. I'm in solidarity with the Cuban people. I hope you are. God bless you. God bless America.
Are you tired of your favorite talk show sounding like this? What if you can hear your favorite talk shows in crystal
clear, high-definition sound? Well, with CRN Digital Talk Radio, 7 channels of high-definition radio, you can now hear all your favorite hosts like you've never heard them before in true CRN high-definition audio. The difference is amazing. Catch your favorite political hosts like Dennis Prager, Michael Medved, Tom Hartman, Stephanie Miller, Larry Elder, Sebastian Gorka, Charlie Kirk, and more. Fred Dreyer on sports, entertainment and lifestyle programming like The Lounge, The What's Cookin' Show, The What's Cookin' on Wine Show, all in true CRN high-definition audio. Sports, business, entertainment, travel, food, wine, politics, there's something for everyone on CRN, and it's all available in CRN high-definition sound. Log in to crntalk.com for listings and information. crntalk.com.
The radio channels. The radio channels. CRN.
Breaking news this hour from townhall.com. I'm John Scott. A White House staffer and an aide to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi tested positive for the coronavirus this week.